What if I told you that some of the habits you think are just part of daily life in Japan are actually the reason you're stuck financially? Every day, millions of people follow routines that look disciplined and admirable, but quietly drain their money over time. On YouTube, almost everyone talks about the positive side of Japanese habits, how they build discipline, success, and a better life. But almost no one talks about the habits that can actually keep you broke. The truth is, not every tradition or cultural habit helps you build wealth. Some of them slowly trap you in a cycle of spending, saving the wrong way, and missing better financial opportunities. The wealthy understand this difference. Most people don't. So in this video, I'm revealing the 10 worst Japanese habits that keep people poor. Stay until the end because habit number 7 is one that millions of people follow without ever realizing how much it's costing them. Let's get started. Number 1. The obsession with brand new everything. All right, let's talk about something that's deeply ingrained in Japanese culture, the love for brand new items. Walk into any electronics store in Tokyo and you'll see people lining up to buy the latest smartphone, the newest camera, the most recent gaming console, even if their current one works perfectly fine. There's a cultural pressure to have the newest, the shiniest, the most recent version of everything. But here's what no one tells you. The second you open that box, your brand new item is already worth less than what you paid, sometimes hundreds of dollars less within minutes. Think of it like this. Imagine you buy a brand new phone for $1,000 and the moment you open the box, the store tells you, actually, it's only worth $700 now. You'd be furious, but that's exactly what happens with consumer electronics, just on a much bigger scale. Now fast forward 2 years. The phone you paid $1,000 for is likely worth less than $300. And if you financed it, which many people do, you're also paying interest along the way. By the time you fully pay it off, you might have spent $1,500 or more on something that just keeps losing value. Wealthy Japanese people see purchases differently. Instead of dropping a fortune on something that's constantly depreciating, they buy slightly used items, ones that are a year or two old but still in great condition. That way, they skip the massive depreciation hit while still getting a reliable product. And the money they save, they put into things that actually grow in value like investments or businesses. So next time you feel the urge to buy the newest version of something, ask yourself, do I really want to spend this much just to lose money faster? Because financially speaking, new consumer products aren't investments. They're just expensive ways to have something slightly better than what you already have. Number 2, the gift-giving culture. Picture this. You're invited to a wedding, a graduation, a housewarming, or a New Year's celebration. In Japan, gift-giving is a fundamental part of social etiquette. You're expected to bring something, and not just any something. It has to be thoughtful, beautifully wrapped, and appropriately priced. Now, there's nothing wrong with generosity, but here's where it gets tricky. The pressure to give elaborate gifts can become a serious financial drain. First, there's the cost of the gift itself. Then there's the wrapping, often multiple layers of expensive paper and ribbons. Then there's the transportation to the event. And let's not forget the reciprocation cycle. When someone gives you a gift, you're socially obligated to give one back, often of equal or greater value. It's like a never-ending cycle of spending that doesn't actually build anything for your future. Wealthy people, they don't tie themselves down like this. Instead of feeling pressured to give expensive gifts, they focus on meaningful gestures. A handwritten note, a small but thoughtful item, or an experience that doesn't cost a fortune. And because they invest their money in things that grow, like stocks, real estate, or businesses, they can afford to be generous without hurting their finances. So before you buy that expensive gift out of social obligation, ask yourself, am I giving this because I truly want to, or just because I feel pressured? Because an expensive gift isn't an investment in your relationships. It's a financial trap disguised as tradition. Number 3, the convenience store trap. Let's be real. Who doesn't love a good convenience store? In Japan, convenience stores are everywhere, open 24/7 and packed with everything from fresh food to household items. It's incredibly convenient. But here's the thing. That convenience comes at a cost, and I'm not just talking about the price tag. Think about it. When you buy a bottled tea from a convenience store, you're paying a premium for the packaging, the refrigeration, the store's overhead, and the convenience of having it available at any hour. That same tea could be made at home for a fraction of the cost. Now multiply that by every snack, every drink, every quick meal you buy from a convenience store over the course of a year. The numbers add up fast. The average person in Japan spends thousands of dollars a year at convenience stores without even realizing it. And the worst part? Most of what you're buying has no long-term value. It's consumed and gone within minutes. Now compare that to how the wealthy handle their money. Do they shop at convenience stores? Sure, sometimes. But they're already financially secure when they do. They're not spending their last yen on a snack or maxing out a credit card for convenience store meals. Instead, they plan their meals, they buy in bulk, they cook at home, and they invest the difference. Imagine two people. One spends $500 a month at convenience stores. The other takes that $500 and invests it. 10 years later, the convenience store shopper has nothing to show for it. The investor? Their money has probably grown into something substantial. So next time you reach for that convenience store snack, ask yourself, am I buying this because I need it or because it's just convenient? Because real wealth isn't about convenience, it's about conscious spending. Number 4, the gambling culture. Japan has a fascinating relationship with gambling. From pachinko parlors to horse racing to lotteries, gambling is woven into the fabric of everyday life. And let's be honest, there's something thrilling about the possibility of winning big. You buy a ticket, you imagine what you'd do with the millions, quit your job, travel the world, buy a house. But here's the thing. Gambling isn't a path to wealth. It's a game where the odds are stacked massively against you. Think of it like this. Your chance of winning a major lottery jackpot is about 1 in 292 million. That's like picking a single grain of sand from an entire beach and somehow guessing the exact right one. Not great odds. Meanwhile, most people who gamble regularly spend thousands of dollars a year on tickets, pachinko, or other forms of gambling. That might not sound like a lot, but imagine if you put that same money into something that actually grows, like stocks, ETFs, or even a side hustle. Over time, that money could turn into thousands, while gambling tickets just turn into scraps of paper. And let's not forget, gambling companies know exactly how to keep you hooked. They don't sell tickets, they sell hope. They show you stories of the few lucky winners, but never mention the millions of people who throw their money away every week chasing the same dream. Meanwhile, wealthy people don't sit around hoping to get rich overnight. They build their wealth slowly, consistently, and with things that actually give them a return. So the next time you think about gambling, ask yourself, am I investing in my future, or am I just paying for a daydream? Number 5, overpriced language schools and certifications. Going to language school is supposed to set you up for a better future, right? That's what we've all been told. But here's where things get tricky. Not all language schools or certifications are worth the price tag. Imagine borrowing $10,000 to enroll in a language program that doesn't actually lead to a well-paying job. That's like taking out a huge loan to buy a car that doesn't run. You're stuck with the debt, but you're not really getting anywhere. Now, don't get me wrong, education is valuable, but the wealthy treat it like an investment. They ask, if I spend this much on a program, how much will I make in return? That's why they often choose programs that have clear, measurable outcomes, like certifications that are recognized in high-paying industries. Meanwhile, some people take out massive loans without really thinking about whether their program will pay off. Then they finish, struggle to find a decent job, and get stuck paying off debt for years. That's not an education, it's a financial trap. The good news is there are other ways to succeed. Online courses, self-study, and free resources can get you to the same level without drowning in debt. Plenty of people build great careers without spending a fortune on language schools. So before signing up for that expensive program, ask yourself, is this actually helping me make money, or am I just paying for a certificate? Number 6, the obsession with credit card points. Ever bought something with your credit card and thought, hey, I'll just pay it off later and earn some points? Feels harmless, right? But here's where it gets sneaky. Credit card debt grows fast, and before you know it, you're stuck paying way more than what you originally spent. Let's say you put $5,000 on a credit card with a 20% interest rate. If you only make the minimum payments, that balance doesn't just sit there, it balloons. You could end up paying double or even triple the original amount by the time you're done. That's like buying a $1,000 phone and eventually paying $2,500 for it. Now here's how wealthy people see debt differently. They don't use credit cards to buy things they can't afford. They use debt as a tool. They borrow money to invest in things that make them more money, like real estate or businesses. It's like using a fishing net instead of a fishing rod. You catch way more in the long run. But most people, they swipe their credit cards for things that lose value: designer clothes, the latest gadgets, fancy dinners, stuff that doesn't put money back in their pockets. And that's how the cycle starts. Spend, borrow, repeat until you're working just to pay off old purchases. So before swiping that card, ask yourself, is this something that's going to make my life better financially, or am I just borrowing from my future self? Because the less you owe, the more freedom you have. Number 7, the housing obsession. This one is a trap so many fall for without even realizing it. In Japan, there's an enormous cultural pressure to own a home, and not just any home. A brand new home, often with a massive mortgage that stretches for 35 years or more. But here's what nobody tells you. Buying a brand new home in Japan isn't the investment people think it is. Unlike in some other countries, property in Japan typically depreciates over time. That brand new home you bought for $500,000 could be worth significantly less within just a few years. And if you took out a loan to buy it, which most people do, you're also paying interest along the way. By the time you fully pay it off, you might have spent $700,000 or more on something that's losing value. Now, compare that to how wealthy Japanese people approach housing. Instead of buying brand new, they often buy older properties that have already depreciated, renovate them, and live in them comfortably. Or they rent in prime locations while investing their money in things that actually grow, like stocks or businesses. They don't tie up their entire financial future in a single asset that's going to lose value. So before you sign that 35-year mortgage on a brand new home, ask yourself, am I buying a home or am I buying a financial burden? Because in Japan, a brand new house isn't always an asset, it's often a liability. Number 8, whole life insurance. Ever had an insurance agent tell you that whole life insurance is an investment? Sounds good on paper. You pay in and someday you get a cash payout. But here's the catch. It's one of the most expensive and slow-growing ways to build wealth. Think of it like this. You're paying huge fees. The returns are way lower than other investments, and it takes decades to see any meaningful growth. Meanwhile, the insurance company is happily making money off your premiums. Wealthy people don't lock their money up in slow-growing policies. Instead, they put their cash into stocks, real estate, or businesses, things that actually grow at a much faster rate. So if you're thinking about whole life insurance as an investment, ask yourself, would I be better off putting this money somewhere that actually works for me? Because chances are, the answer is yes. Number 9, expensive memberships and subscriptions. Ever notice how many subscription services there are in Japan? Gym memberships, magazine subscriptions, streaming services, delivery boxes, the list goes on. Individually, each one doesn't seem like much. But add them all up and you could be spending thousands of dollars a year on things you barely use. Let's be real. Do you really need that premium gym membership when you only go twice a month? Do you need 5 different streaming services when you only watch one show at a time? Subscription companies are masters at making us feel like we need their service. They offer a free trial, send you reminders, and make it a hassle to cancel. And suddenly, you're paying for something you forgot you even had. Wealthy people don't fall for this. They audit their subscriptions regularly and cut anything they don't actually use. The money they save, they invest. So before you sign up for that new subscription, ask yourself, is this something I'm truly going to use, or am I just paying for convenience? Because over time, those small monthly charges add up to a fortune. Number 10, expensive weddings and ceremonies. Weddings in Japan are beautiful. There's no doubt about that. But have you ever stopped to think about the price tag? The average wedding in Japan costs over $30,000, and that's just the ceremony. Add in the reception, the gifts, the outfits, and you could easily be looking at $50,000 or more, all for a single day of celebration. Now let's put that into perspective. $30,000 could be a down payment on a house. It could kickstart a business. It could be invested and grow over time. But instead, a lot of people choose to spend it on a wedding, sometimes even going into debt for it, just to impress guests who, let's be honest, probably won't remember half the details. Wealthy people see things differently. They know that financial security lasts a lifetime, while a wedding is just one day. That doesn't mean they don't celebrate. It just means they spend wisely and prioritize what truly matters. So before going all out on a wedding, ask yourself, am I spending for a meaningful experience, or am I just following expectations? Because the smartest move might be keeping it simple and putting that money toward your future instead. So here's the cold, hard truth. The biggest difference between the wealthy and the struggling in Japan isn't just income, it's where they put their money. The struggling get tricked into buying things that look like necessities but actually make them poor. The wealthy focus on cash-flowing investments, appreciation, and financial freedom. Instead of wasting money on liabilities, start putting your money into things that actually grow. Real estate that pays you every month. Stocks and index funds that compound over time. Businesses and side hustles that generate passive income. Skills and knowledge that increase your earning power. The goal isn't just to make money, it's to make your money work for you. If you want to be wealthy, stop spending like you already are. Cut these toxic financial traps out of your life and start investing in your future instead. If you found this valuable, smash that like button and subscribe for more game-changing financial content. And drop a comment below. Which of these mistakes have you made, and how did you recover from it? I read every comment.